All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and joining us. My name is Hong Min, and I'm a part of the Careers and Professional Development team here at WGU. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome back one of our returning speakers, Kim Wilkes. Kim joined us for a previous Career Quest series last year, and the response was incredible. So we're so excited to have her back. And it's been amazing to see the interest and buzz around today's topic as well. It's actually one of our most registered sessions so far. Kim currently leads customer marketing, social, and events at BrightHire. She's also a leading voice on LinkedIn in all things talent, branding, and she's a great advocate for the remote hiring space as well. I actually connected with Kim a couple years ago on LinkedIn, and she's been truly such a thoughtful leader to learn from and chat with. So I'm really excited she's joining us today. She'll be sharing on how to win at remote opportunities. So, Kim, we're so grateful to have you here with us again. It's always such a pleasure to learn and hear from your great insights and experience. So, with that, I'll go ahead and pass things over to you.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me back. I'm just so excited to be here with everyone. And I know Hong's going to share my presentation because I wasn't able to get it to work on my end, so I appreciate it. And before we dive in, I also just want to say thanks for having me during Black History Month. I just want to say happy Black History Month to everyone. So, ready to dive in? We can start with the first slide. If you just want to go on to the next one, hopefully it's working okay. You might have to click onto the right side or the bottom. A little bit about me for those I haven't had the chance to meet with before. I have spent 10 years now in tech. It's crazy thinking that it's been 10 years. I know everyone's talking about like 2016. And 2016 for me was moving to the Pacific Northwest to start my career in tech. I grew up in Pittsburgh. I spent 6 years in Indianapolis and then moved out to Seattle to work for Amazon. I've since worked for Uber, Palo Alto Networks, and Zapier. And I have built employer brands. I've helped organizations attract really great talent. I've built hiring strategies as well as communities. And I've led and mentored really, really amazing people across sourcing, recruiting, and employer brand. And I was actually I experienced a job transition myself last year. I was part of company restructure at Zapier. And so I'm, excited to be able to come here and actually tell you, here's what I actually did when I was looking for my next role. And there were some ups and downs, and I'll definitely get to those, but I'm really excited to be able to share that now I'm working for BrightHire. I lead, as Hong said, I lead customer marketing, social, and events at BrightHire, and I've been here for 3 months. Just super excited to be on the team because BrightHire is an interview intelligence platform with the mission to give everyone the hiring experience they deserve. It's something that I'm really passionate about, but I also used BrightHire at Zapier for several years. And so I became a huge fan of the product. And now I have the opportunity to be working with the team that's building and evolving the product. So just love the fact that I have the chance to do what I do. And then a fun fact about me is that I finished just recently in the last couple of months building my own home gym here where I live. During the pandemic, my partner and I moved to Bellingham, Washington, and um, and we built a house. We built a house from the ground up, and it took us a very, very long time. But I'm just super excited that I can now finally have my home gym done because, being remote, I just love the opportunity to get up in the morning, throw on some clothes, get my workout in, and then get my day started. So it's taken a while, but I'm here and I love it. But yeah, on to the next slide. So I have a question for all of you now that I've shared a little bit about myself, and you probably know if I'm an early bird or a night owl by what I just shared with you. But I was creeping on your Facebook page and I noticed this question and I thought, well, this is fun. We should start with a fun question to get to know everyone a little bit. So if you've already answered this in your Facebook, then I'm sorry, I'm going to have you answer it again. Would love for you to share in the chat if you are an early bird or if you are a night owl. And Hong, I'd love to hear from you too. I'm curious which way you lean.
I'm an early bird. I used to be a cool night owl, but now I just like to start my day kind of early, just like you, and kind of keep a routine. And I'm like, oh man, am I just falling into old people habits, but I think it just helps me be more productive.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and I agree with you too. I'm definitely an early bird, and I'd prefer to not be a night owl so much anymore. I don't know. I just get tired at the end of the day. When you
Hmm.
get up at 5:30 in the morning and then you go all day, it's time to crash.
Hmm. Yep.
I'm seeing a lot of people though saying both. Kudos
Yep.
to you.
Hmm.
Amazing. Well, thanks for sharing. We can go into the next slide. We'll get started. So as Hong mentioned, I'm really excited to talk to you about how to land a really great remote job. I'll share during this session what I think works well, what doesn't always work, as well as things that don't always get discussed about how to compete in today's market. Today's market and what the market has been over the last several years is unlike anything I'd ever seen before. So I'm excited to talk through that a little bit. And I'll also share where I think you should use AI and where I think you should not use AI. And again, this comes from my own personal experience, but also as someone who's worked in the talent space. And I've worked directly with candidates and helped a lot of folks in finding their next job. So excited to talk through that as well. The three main things that we'll cover is one, knowing what you want. That is actually very, very important, as well as getting clear on the skills that you specifically as an individual bring to the table. I'll also show, or we'll also talk about how to show your value and position yourself as a teammate. And then also being prepared and being yourself. That can be a little bit harder than it might seem sometimes. So we'll talk through that too. So if you want to go to the next slide, before we actually dig into that first point, I thought I would just take a moment and share a little bit about what it was like for me navigating this market, because I'm sure many of you are either going through it now, you have gone through it before, or maybe it's something that you'll experience in the future. I just, I can relate to the ups and downs. I went through a job transition with Zapier last summer, and it was a surprise, of course, like it is, I'm sure, for many. Though I'll say it was a very respectful process and experience. I was able to still stay on with the company for about 6 to 7 weeks and close out a lot of my work and make sure that my team was taken care of and transition a lot of the work that was really important to me. So I say that in hopes that other companies out there, if they're listening, it's a great way to take care of your people. You hear these horror stories of folks finding out that they no longer have a job because their access is cut off. And I think that's an awful way to treat someone that is working hard and doing what they can for your organization. So I definitely feel lucky. I was very respected. Of course, it's never fun going through a transition like that. But at the same time, I was very grateful for the opportunity that I had. And also, it was during the summer. I thought, you know what, this is your chance to enjoy your summer in the Pacific Northwest. And it wasn't always easy. I really did try to enjoy my time and get outdoors and hike and be on the water and all the things that I love. But I will say too, like just as a human, there were days where I woke up and I felt like, am I going to find a job that I'm actually excited about? How long is this process going to take? I've got bills to pay. There were moments that were really, really scary. And I think my advice for anyone that's going through that is, at least what helped for me, everyone's different, is I try to remind myself during those moments where maybe I was scared, or I was worried, or I was anxious of what's going to come next. I kept trying to remind myself, are those thoughts going to help you get one step closer to what's next for you? And of course, they were not. And so I would often think to myself, what's one thing that I could be doing instead that could help me get closer to that next role? Maybe that was getting online and searching for my next job. Maybe it was applying for a job I had saved, but I hadn't made the time to do it. For me, it was also get your portfolio done. I kept putting that aside for so long. But regardless, I think doing things that will lead to forward momentum can often help when you're having those moments of doubt or just fear or concern of when's that next opportunity going to present itself. And I'm glad that I did. I'm glad that I spent that time. And like I mentioned, I'm now part of a really great organization at BrightHire. And I also pivoted into marketing. So I've spent most of my career in the talent space. Last, I'd say 5 years or so has been more so focused on talent attraction, employer brand, recruitment marketing, communications, events. And that's the kind of work that really fills me up, that I love. And so you hear people say on LinkedIn all the time, like, now is not the time to transition into a new role. And that might be true for a lot of people, but I think if you reflect back on the experience you have, the skills that you've gained, and the things that really interest you, there can be opportunities for you to pivot into a different space and do work that you really, really love. So I'm excited to share more about that. So next slide. We'll talk about getting clear on what you want and the skills that you bring to the table. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. And where I think this is so important to take the time to do is, it's so easy, especially after you've been through maybe a layoff or you've been through a restructure at a company. It's so easy to think to yourself, oh, I should just go after the same thing. I should just go out and start applying to other similar jobs. But you don't have to. I think that's an opportunity to take your time and figure out what you want. Or maybe this is for you the first step in your career and the first job that you want. Really think about who you are and what you want as an individual. And there's 5 questions that I have listed here that I would recommend you ask yourself. I did not ask myself all of these things when I was first going through the transition myself, but reflecting back on it, I think these are the things that I should have been asking myself from the very beginning, because they were extremely helpful in getting me clear on what I wanted and landing that opportunity that I ultimately have. The first question is, what kind of work energizes you the most? For me, I thought back on all of the different things that I'd done at Zapier in the past couple of companies, and I thought about the creative work that I love, helping other people share their stories and their voices, whether that's through blogs or videos. I love strategy. I love collaborating with other people across the organization on things like, again, like producing content, producing videos, building websites. I love a lot of that creative work, so that's what was important for me. The second is, what are your unique skills? What are the skills that you bring to the table that make you who you are? And I would also make sure to include in that list, if you're using AI and automation, those are specific skills as well, and make sure that you keep that front and center as you think about who you are and your story. Also reflect on the accomplishments that you're most proud of, because that also kind of builds into who you are and the story that you're able to tell. When I thought back about my experience at Zapier, one of the things I was really proud of was that I was able to help them rebuild. After the company went through a major layoff a couple of years ago, it was a really hard time for the company, and leading the brand was not easy, but it's something that I was able to help them completely turn around and rebuild their entire brand. And I had never had that opportunity before. So like, that resonated with me, and I made that part of my story. The fourth question is, what kind of environment enables you to thrive, especially as you think about remote work? I thought about the fact that I love being autonomous. I love being able to have the freedom to build and to come up with some new ideas. But I also wanted teammates that were willing to be there and support me. If I got stuck on something, if I made a mistake, I would want to know that I have a manager and peers and leaders around me that would be there to support me. So that became a part of who I was and what I was looking for next. And then the last is, what collaboration tools do you enjoy using? I added this one because, especially when you're looking for remote work, it's really important to illustrate that you're able to communicate effectively and you've used the tools to be able to do so. And I think you can do that in so many different types of environments, whether that's while you're in school, doing an internship, or even in a job. There's so many tools that you'll use, like Slack, to stay connected. You might use Zoom over to be able to connect with people over video. You might use Loom. I record a lot of Loom videos and I send them to my peers, so that instead of calling them into a meeting and showing them what I want to show them, I can send them a quick 2 to 3 minute video and eliminate that. So any of those types of tools that help you communicate, it really illustrates your readiness for a remote role. So those are all the 5 things that I would highly recommend thinking about before you start building your resume and before you start applying to jobs. It's going to help you get clear on what you want and what's important to you. And I think ultimately it will lead you to the right types of opportunities and less time wasted on roles or companies or teams that really might not even be the best fit for you. If you want to go to the next slide. I know it's a little bit tiny, you probably can't see my whole resume here, and I'm happy to send out the slides after this session. But I wanted to show you, or at least like share with you, What I did with my resume, thinking back on those 5 questions, thinking back on the skills I have, the experience that I gained, who I am as a person, how I'm using AI and automation. So my advice when you're building your resume, after you've done this reflecting and you've jotted all these things down, is to make sure that you have them all show up on your resume, that it's not just a bulleted list of, I've done this, I've done that, I've done this. You should really showcase who you are as an individual, especially with the state of AI. There's so much AI out there everywhere. I think it's so important to make sure that your resume is like a really true reflection of who you are and the impact you've made. So some of the tips that I have here, one, always include a summary. I review resumes all the time where that's not always included. And I would always recommend having a short summary. Mine's a little bit longer than most, but make sure that you tell the version of a short version of your journey and the impact that you've been able to make over that course of time. And also mention AI or automation or both and some of the tools that you're using, because employers are looking for folks that are already well versed in a lot of these tools, and they want someone that can help them level up. So make sure that you're illustrating that front and center in your summary. Also, if you have them, include recognition and awards. This really just helps to show your value, and that's the second point that I put directly on my resume. I didn't put it at the bottom, I put it close to the top because I wanted whoever was reviewing my resume to see I've done more than just the job that I've held, and I've been recognized in a number of different ways. I would also recommend that the first bullet point that you include within your experience section illustrates the overall impact that you have made on the organization. And again, it's kind of going back into telling your story. And actually, let me pull it up on my end because I know it's really hard to see. And I'm going to enlarge it a little bit. And I'm just going to read to you the first, see if I can enlarge it, the first bullet point that I have so that you have a better sense of what I'm talking about. The first bullet that I have under my last role at Zapier says that I built Zapier's first global talent attraction and brand function, scaling the org from 500 to 750 plus employees, and positioning the company as a best-in-class employer during rapid transformation. So that basically sums up everything that I have done. And so if you can think of all of the different accomplishments, the impact that you've made, the data, and you're telling it in the sense of a story, make sure that you sum all of that up into one bullet point at the very beginning that says, at a high level, here's what I did for the organization. That really stands out. And then from there, you can go down through the lines, through your bullet points, and really tell a great story. It becomes less of, again, a list of things you've done and into a story, and takes that person on a journey to start reading your bullet points and realizing, oh, wow, they did this. Oh, and then they also did this. And they want to continue reading on to learn about everything else you've done. Last piece of advice is to also add links. Don't be afraid to add links into your resume. I've built web pages, I've built blogs. I made sure to link them there. And that way, if the reader was curious to learn more, they could click right into it and just have a little bit more context. Also, it's okay to evolve your story over time, and it's okay to continue updating your resume. I'm not gonna lie, I updated my resume probably like 24 times. I actually got feedback from someone after one of my first interviews, and they said, I see on your resume, you've done so much at your last company. I don't know where you fit. And I thought, that's such great feedback because it's true. And I went back and I looked at my resume and I thought it shows so many different things I've done, different projects I've worked on, and it didn't really illustrate what I was going for, what I was most interested in doing. And so I did a total revamp of my resume, and I took out anything that was no longer relevant to what I wanted to do going forward. It now only included the things I had done and accomplished that I felt would take me into that next step in my career. So that was really, really helpful. So if you get feedback, if you're getting questions, just reflect back and make some changes. I hope all of those tips are helpful. Now, where should you and should you not use AI? First, I would say do not use AI to outline your accomplishments in your resume. I do think that you could use AI to summarize your accomplishments, but you know yourself, you know what you've been able to accomplish, you have the data. AI can often get this wrong. So what was helpful for me was I actually took a notebook and a pen down to the lake near my house, And I started listing out all the things I had done at Zapier, all the things I was proud of. I later went back and added data to it. And I thought to myself, I probably haven't really outlined all of the things I'm proud of doing at previous companies as well. And so that list got longer and longer of all the different companies I'd worked for, all the accomplishments that I had made, all the things I was proud of. And then I was able to feed that to ChatGPT and ask it to summarize it for me. So I know ChatGPT at times and other AI tools, it can hallucinate, it can often make things up. So I don't fully trust it, but I do think that it can help you in summarizing all of the accomplishments that you might write down about yourself. I would also say don't use AI to tell your story. Again, you know yourself, you know your story, you know where you've been, and it's really important that you keep that front and center. But you can use AI to help you build your story and to help you be able to communicate your story in a way that's not maybe doesn't sound like a long monologue when you're going on in an interview, which can often be very, very hard. I've linked a website here, which is mycareerspan.com. A friend of mine, Bridgen, recently, or maybe not recently, several months ago, built this site, and he reached out to me while I was looking for my next job. And he said, you should try this out. And I found it really helpful. It can help you as a job seeker in so many different ways. But one of the things I used it for was being able to tell my story in a clear and concise manner. I had not interviewed in over 3 years. I went to a couple of interviews and I thought, I am all over the place and I really need to get clear on my story. And so I used the chatbot feature they had, and it asked me questions like, tell me about your last role. What are the things that you accomplished? How did you accomplish it? Who did you work with? What was the outcome, etc. And it helped me produce a really concise summary of my story that I could then bring to interviews with me. So I highly recommend it. And then lastly, I would not use AI to write your resume. Again, I tried using this myself and it just took me down this rabbit hole of this doesn't even sound like me. Some of the data is not right. I would say use AI to help you polish it. There were certain lines in my resume where I said, this is too long and I'm trying to shorten my resume. Can you help me shorten this into one line? Or I don't like how this sounds. Can you help me maybe rephrase this a little bit? And that was really helpful because it kept it true to me and who I am, but it also helped me in making it sound, I think, a little bit stronger. So my advice is that AI should help enhance what you're doing, but it definitely shouldn't replace it. I wanted to ask you all as well if you have a favorite AI tool, anything that's helped you in telling your story, or even anything that's helped you with your resume. It would be great if there's anything that you want to share in the chat. If you have a link to anything that's been helpful for you as well, feel free to share that. I just think with everyone here on the call, if there are certain tools that maybe you're not familiar with, can all learn from each other. So feel free to share. And I think for the sake of time, we'll move into the next slide. So the next thing that I have is really all about showing your value and positioning yourself as a teammate early on. So if you want to go into the next slide, we'll start with showing your value. And I think it's so important to be able to showcase not just the things that you have done on your resume, but really illustrate that in various ways so that your potential employer can actually see what you would bring to the table. Now, one example of this is a portfolio. There are other examples that I'll share during this session as well. But one of them that has really, really made a difference for me is creating a portfolio. And I mentioned earlier that I put it off for a little while. I kept thinking, oh, it's not where it needs to be, or maybe I need to do this with it or that with it. And I just felt maybe it's not good enough. And at one point I just sat down and I said, you know what, I'm going to get this done. It doesn't need to be perfect and I'm going to put it out there. And as soon as I built my portfolio, which I can show you very quickly, and I added it to my resume, I added it to applications, I started getting so many more interviews. And I think it's because employers were able to actually see, wow, look at the work that she had done. That's the kind of work that she's going to bring here. Oh, we want someone like this here at our company. So it made a big difference. Hong, would you mind just clicking into that real quick? So this is my portfolio, and I'll just go very high level, but I have a quick summary of myself. If you scroll down, you can see just a little bit about me. It talks about what I've done and what my values are. From there, it shows how I've built a global brand. And it talks a little bit about how I've built employee value propositions, which is basically the North Star for any company in attracting talent. And I've included webinars that I've hosted in the past so that they can see the work that I've done and how I present myself. I also shared a bit about an ambassador program that I built and all of the results of it. You can see examples of websites, videos, blogs, all sorts of things that I have created for my last company. You can also see how I built a brand influence on LinkedIn, and also different ways that I have built community at Zapier. Beyond that, I shared some of my, if you want to call it, thought leadership webinars, podcasts, and articles that I've been a part of. And I also shared the impact that I've been able to make with awards and all of the data that drives back to everything that I was able to accomplish. And then following that up with some recommendations that I've received from really amazing people. So it's not perfect. There's so many other things that I can do with it, but I highly recommend if you're in a role where you feel like you have the opportunity to showcase some of the work you've done, just do it and just get it out there, because it will make a world of a difference. And if you want to go back to the slides, I can show you as well some other options, because you may not be interested in building a portfolio, or maybe you just don't feel like, hey, maybe I'm just not ready to build a portfolio yet. And that's okay. It's not for everybody. One other thing that you can do is to showcase your accomplishments and what you're learning on LinkedIn. And we'll take a look at my profile in just a sec. But 3 things that I would always recommend is to make sure that you update your LinkedIn profile so that it aligns with your resume. That makes it so much easier for a hiring team, a recruiter, business leader to be able to connect the dots between the resume that you might have submitted for a job as well as your profile itself. And the more keywords you have on your profile, of course, the more likely you are to be found by a recruiter on LinkedIn. I would also recommend always having a strong title, completing your about section, and completing your experience section. There's so many things you can do to your LinkedIn profile, but I think those are the top 3. And then a bonus would be creating a section for any projects that you've completed, like presentations, workshops, webinars. They're all great ways of showing what you've been able to do versus just telling on a resume. So Hong, if you wouldn't mind just pulling up my LinkedIn profile real quick, just give you a couple of quick things to see. You can see what my title looks like here. I started my title with leading customer marketing at BrightHire, because when you start posting or you leave in comments, the reader only sees roughly that many characters. And so that was important for me to be able to illustrate exactly what I do, where I do it. And then I have some additional things that were important to me behind the work that I'm doing and the impact that I'm hoping to make. And then if you scroll down to the About section, just a quick note about that. I think it's always great to share a little bit in your About section about where you work or what your values are, what you're hoping to do, and also include a little bit about yourself personally. And you can see some of the hobbies that I have here as well. It really helps to build commonality with other folks that could potentially be reaching out to you. And then the third thing that I recommended is your experience section. And so if you scroll down to that, you can see that I have my experience section built out. BrightHire is a little bit more high level because I've only joined just a couple of months ago. But if you were to look at Zapier and Palo Alto Networks and the other companies where I've worked, all of the bullet points and all of the information that I have mirrors exactly what I have in my resume. And that's what I would highly recommend for you too. And then the last thing is if you scroll down to the project section, I added my own project section, which houses any of the additional content that I've made, any of the speaking engagements or podcasts or blogs that I've written with other industry professionals. And that way folks coming to my profile can see what else I do and what else I contribute to beyond the role that I hold on a regular basis. So I hope that's helpful. And one other tip that I have when it comes to LinkedIn on this next slide here, and this is a bonus, you don't have to do all these things. I wouldn't say that these things are absolutely going to get you a great remote job, but they can help. One is follow the companies that you're really interested in and engage with their content. Make a list of the companies that you're most excited about, maybe a list of all of the remote companies you'd love to work for someday, and follow them. Connect with the people who work there. You can ask for introductory calls. I will say keep it short and sweet. If you do reach out to someone, I might say, hey, I'm Kim, this is my background, really excited about your company, or I love seeing the things that your company is doing. I've looked at your profile, I see that you're doing XYZ thing at the company. I'd love to connect. I'd love to learn more about what the culture is like there. Or maybe I've applied and I think I'd be a great fit based on XYZ reasons. And I'd love to schedule a chat with you to learn more about the role or the team. I would say if the person does not get back to you, try not to take it personally. A lot of folks are really busy today. We all are. And some just may not manage their LinkedIn account all the time. So I say go for it, shoot your shot. If you can get a message back and grab time with someone, then great. And if not, that's okay. Just move on to the next. My third piece of advice that I have here as well is to create your own content. Again, it's not like creating content is going to lead to you getting a job, but it can help employers see a little bit more about who you are, how you think, what you're building, and it could be maybe AI tools that you're experimenting with. Maybe it's a blog that you recently read or a new perspective that you've gained. And I shared a post, you don't have to click on this here, but I did share a post if you wanted to look into it, that just talks about how you can use AI to create a better onboarding experience. And even by me doing so, I get a lot of folks who reach out, even now that I'm at BrightHire, and they'll ask questions. Hey, how did you do that? What tools did you use? Could you show me how to do that? Or would you be interested in coming to this speaking engagement and telling us more about how others could do the same thing? So it's always really helpful, I think, to put yourself out there and showcase that. And I think it just, just get started. Just start with one post and see where it goes, and you can build over time. The second part of this is positioning yourself as a teammate. Honestly, I was thinking about everything that I'm sharing with you here today, and I know that there's a lot, but if there's one thing that I recommend more than anything else, it's this. So if you go to the next slide, I would say the first thing that you can do to position yourself as a teammate and to really stand out, both in the application and the interview process, but also those later stages and that company deciding, is this the right person for us? Make sure that you take the time to learn from industry experts. This was really important for me because I was pivoting from the talent space into marketing, and there were a lot of things I just didn't know. I was interviewing for a customer marketing role, and I actually thought to myself, what do most customer marketers do? How are they partnering internally with other stakeholders? And how are they determining success? Where are they spending their time? There were so many questions I had. And honestly, I think, there's imposter syndrome, right? And I thought to myself, am I the right person for this? And I've gained all of this experience and I've done a lot of this stuff before, but I still question myself. And I started using AI. I started using ChatGPT. Tell me more about this. Tell me more about that. And I felt like I was getting lost. And so there are some areas that I went to, some things that I tapped into that really helped me learn so much more. I think it's great to be curious about how others are tackling similar challenges. Again, in my role, how are others in customer marketing tackling the challenges that they're facing on a day-to-day basis? What are the AI tools they're using? How are they automating their workflows? And then how are they measuring success? What's really important in this type of role? So instead of just relying on AI, I read blogs, I read articles. I'm walking on the treadmill at the gym and I'm reading these blogs that tell me a little bit more about what this role entails. I actually attended webinars and I watched previous webinars of folks that are in the space doing the work and hearing how they think about it, what they got wrong, what they wish they would have done differently. And I learned so much and so much faster than just asking AI. The last thing is I would say, don't toss aside communities, Slack communities, Facebook groups. I think there's a lot that you can learn from people there too. On the next slide, I think it's important to also bring really thoughtful questions into your interviews. And I added this here because once you've taken the time to do some extra research and learn so much more about what the role entails and what others in the industry are doing, make sure that you're bringing that with you and you're asking really thoughtful questions in that first interview that you land. That's what's going to set you up for success here. I always say take a strategic approach and ask the most important questions early on, again, in your very first interview. I would be asking, what are the main challenges that I can expect to face in this role? What are the 3 most important metrics that you, hiring manager, want to measure in the first 90 days? How is the team using AI and automation today? That can tell you a lot about what tools they're using. And guess what? If they're not using AI and automation a ton, but you are, there's your chance to shine. And also, what's the remote work culture like? You really want to make sure that that environment is right for you. Also, just side tip, I know everyone knows this, but do a little bit of homework and learn about each person that you're interviewing with in advance, and that way you're coming all together prepared. And with that, demonstrate what you bring to the table. So you've created your resume, you've now either created a portfolio or you've updated your LinkedIn profile to show what you really can do, what you really bring to the table. The only thing that's missing is, how would you solve these challenges? You've asked the questions. Now you know what the challenges are. You know what the team wants to measure. You know what it takes to be successful in the role. Go a step further and show them, if I were in this role, if you hired me today, here's what I would do for you. Here are the ideas that I have. Here are the suggestions that I have. Even if you've never done it before. Again, some of the things that are involved in my role, I had never done before. But after doing my research and learning so much more, I thought, no one asked me to do this. I just thought, I'm going to send you a couple of slides that outlines, here's what you told me you'd want me to do. Here's some ideas. Here's how I might tackle it. And if I did, here would be the impact. This is some of the data that you'd probably see as a result. And I just thought, hopefully they're going to love it, and hopefully they will already see me as a teammate. It showed them how I think. It showed them that I was proactive. It showed them how I communicate. And also for me as an individual, it really helped me feel more prepared coming in. It was less of an interview and me answering their questions and more of a conversation. Me saying, here's what I would actually do. Here's what I would bring to the table. And we were able to talk about it. And I think it worked really well. I mean, I'm at BrightHire now, so I highly recommend it. I would say one caveat though, I would not do all of this work for every single job you're applying for. If there is one role that you're moving forward with and you're really, really excited about the company and about the role, invest a little bit of time. And it doesn't have to be slides. Maybe it's a Google Doc with a couple of simple ideas you've jotted down and you want to send it over to the hiring manager to say, I was thinking about this. Here's some ideas I have. Scrappy. Don't put a ton of time into it, but it shows that you're proactive. And then where should you and should you not use AI? Similar to what I've shared a little bit before, but I would not use AI to write for you, to write your portfolio, to write sections of your LinkedIn profile, or even your social posts. I think that it's there to help you enhance, but not to write. My biggest piece of advice there is anytime that you're creating content of any sort, whether it's formal content in a portfolio or even just a LinkedIn post, read it out loud. Ask yourself, does this sound like me? Would I say this to a friend? And if not, put it in your own words, put it in your own voice. Don't let AI handle all of your interview research. As I mentioned, I was asking ChatGPT and I got a lot of stuff, some of it that didn't even make sense to me. I use AI to get fresh ideas and fresh perspectives. Where should I go to find this information? Are there any webinars that have existed in the past 6 months that maybe I could listen to or sign up for? But don't rely on it entirely. And also, don't use AI to manage all of your interview prep. Do a little bit of that on your own, but you can use AI to help you generate potential interview questions. And I'll get into that a little bit more right before we wrap up. I would just say think of AI as an extra resource and not the only one. And lastly, we'll keep this short and quick, but preparing ahead and being yourself. So again, where to use AI? Use AI to build confidence, to help you determine what could potentially be asked during your interviews. One of the things that I did was once I built a couple of slides that I shared with the hiring team to say, here's what I would do for you. Here are the ideas I have to solve the challenges you told me about. I downloaded that as a PDF and I uploaded it to ChatGPT. And I asked, what are some of the additional questions that I might get during this interview based on what I'm presenting? And that was extremely helpful because it helped me plan ahead. Then I would say, as you're thinking about what those answers are, you can ask ChatGPT or you could ask any AI tool that you're using, hey, what's a good answer for this? And you can get some ideas. But ultimately, those ideas have to come from you. So make sure that anything that you're getting from AI, that you're also thinking back on, how would I present this? What do I think about this? What does this mean to me? And how am I going to communicate it in a really authentic manner in my interview so that it's not me trying to memorize AI and then realizing that I can't and not feeling confident in your interview. And that goes into the next slide, which is all about being yourself. And so if you've done everything that I've recommended here and you've prepared, you've showcased what you're able to do, you've showcased what you can do, what you will do for that company if you're hired in that role, and you've practiced and you've gone through in your own head or maybe with a friend, you can be yourself. You can relax. You can have a real conversation. You don't have to feel like you're, putting on a mask or you're just signing up for an interview. You can actually have a real genuine conversation with the other person on the other side of the room. So I just say, if you've done all of that, as much as you can, just try to be yourself, have a conversation, because the people that you want to get to know, you want to know who they are. So let them know who you are too. Now I know I've shared a lot. So 3 key takeaways, if anything else. 1, think about the 5 questions that I had shared earlier and use those to tell a story in your resume. 2 is to create a portfolio or update your LinkedIn profile. And 3 is to prepare for your interviews by showing what you would present, by sharing the challenges that you would help that company overcome and the ideas that you have. So with that, I would just love to hear in the chat, what's one thing that you would like to do or that you would like to implement or something that maybe you would like to explore. And while you do that, I'll just share a couple of last things. 1, I know everyone's here for remote work, so shameless plug, but BrightHire is hiring because we're fully remote. So you can see on the slide, we have a number of different roles open. You're welcome to visit our careers page. You can even just go to Google and just look up BrightHire careers, and you're welcome to apply. And if you don't see a role that is a great fit for you now, then just set up a job alert. And as soon as a new role opens that aligns with your interest, go ahead and apply. And lastly, I would love to stay in touch with you all. So you have my LinkedIn profile there, and you're welcome to connect or give me a follow, and I'd love to stay in touch. Yeah, happy to dig into anything else here or answer any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kim. And we'll drop your LinkedIn here in the chat. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing just so that I can come back to the chat here. But I saw a lot of good pop-ups, a great engagement, lots of thoughtful questions. Let's see here. And if I missed one, feel free to drop it again in the chat. Or if we don't get to it today, you can always email us and we'll make sure to follow back up here. Lots of good comments. Okay, I think I'm at the first one. It appears many times remote roles are now requiring 12 plus years of on-the-job experience in addition to academic requirements. Is this the new trend? How do you navigate the waters as this often is a new sign of the times?
Yes, that is something that we are seeing in the job market today. I think you have a mix of companies that are looking for folks who are more senior and they're looking for more experience so that they can really just bring that person in and get them up to speed quickly. But I do think that there are some organizations that are looking for folks that don't have quite as much experience. I am not an expert on this by any means, but I do tend to see more like larger companies that hire thousands and thousands of employees opening up that pool a bit more. Like when I think about having worked at Uber and having worked at Amazon and Palo Alto Networks, like those are really big companies. And a lot of times they would have university teams and they're bringing in students that have recently graduated or they're offering internships. So my advice is to probably look at some larger companies first, not to say that smaller companies like startups aren't offering those, but I do tend to see bigger, larger organizations that are more willing to bring in folks that don't have as much experience and help you learn and train and get up to speed. And it's usually the smaller companies that I'm seeing hiring folks that have a lot more senior level experience. And I do hope that changes.
Yes, thank you, Kim. Next one here. How many pages should a resume be? I hear a lot of conflicting info between it should fit on 1 page or it should be 3 to 4 pages if you can fill that much information.
That's such a great question. I was actually going to mention that on my slide with my resume, because if you looked at that, mine goes to 3 pages. My resume is like a little over 2.5 pages. And I guess my recommendation is always, if you've got a few years of experience, probably 1 page. If you've got maybe 5 to 10 years of experience, I think 2 pages is fine. If you've got over 10 to 15 years of experience, I think 2.5, 3 pages is also fine. I probably wouldn't go over that because it's just a lot for someone to read. But I always say my advice is just make sure that it's worth reading. Make sure that whatever you have on there, it's not just words that you've gathered from ChatGPT. Make sure that it's really important stuff that illustrates, here's what I did, here's how I did it, this was the impact of it, this is the data that goes along with it. Again, try to move away from bullet points of I did this, I did this, I did this, and really think about how you got involved in something, how you built it, why you built it, what the impact was. And so I think if you have more of that, and that warrants 2 pages, then I'd say go for 2 pages. But those are generally the rules I would follow.
Yeah, that's great insight. Thanks, Kim. Next one here. How can employers tell if you're using AI to build your resume?
If you're using AI to build your resume, I know that there are a lot of companies now that can kind of detect that. Trying to think of what I have seen. I think from my perspective, a lot of it is just like the wording that you're using, and a lot of like the same AI generated words that ChatGPT is constantly putting out. And I see that a lot too, even in the content that I try to create, and I'll write back and, don't talk like this. Um, I think, yeah, I mean, it's been a little while since I've reviewed a lot of resumes, but I think that would be the main thing for me, is just like seeing those standard phrases that AI is usually putting out there. And the reason that I say to stay away from that too, because even if a company can't detect it, the reason that I would say to stay away from that is because you're going to be asked about them. And so if it's not entirely you, then it's going to be really hard to speak to it.
Yep, yep, that's great. Next one here. It can be constantly challenging to link your professional social platforms such as LinkedIn to match every resume you're tailoring for each role. How does one achieve this connect slash link LinkedIn with every tailored resume for our particular position?
Yeah, I know that there are folks out there that are building multiple resumes for all different sorts of roles. My recommendation is to actually maybe take a little bit more of a tailored approach. Myself personally, and this is just me, everyone's different, but I had 3 different versions of my resume, and I used them based on the specific type of role that I was applying for. But on my LinkedIn, I really thought about, what is it that I really, really want to do? What am I most passionate about? What is it that is the next step for me in my career? And I made sure that those were the things that really showed up on my LinkedIn profile, because you can have so many different things that you add, but what are the things that are most important for you that an employer can read to detect this person is actually going to be a great fit for this role that they're applying for? So I would just say, look at the sum of the work and include the things that are really going to put you in a spotlight to hopefully land what it is that you really want to do next.
That's great. Next one here. Does BrightHire have any internship opportunities?
We don't. I wish we did. Hopefully that'll change in the future. But we were acquired by Zoom, and I don't know if Zoom has any, but Zoom is a much larger company, so they might. So that could be worth looking into.
Yes, a lot of great comments on here about different AI tools that are used, different helpful tips on things like how do you get names of folks that will be interviewing you in advance. Usually when you're contacted for an interview, the interviewer will name themselves in the email or initial phone call. That's great advice there. Uh, a lot of thank yous to you, Kim, for your great advice and the insights that you shared today. Folks mentioning that they'll connect with you on LinkedIn. Let's see here. Would it be all right to ask if an interview question I have used in the past is appropriate for remote work?
Sure.
Oh, let's see. What advice would you give your former self at the beginning of your career?
I've talked about this recently, actually, on LinkedIn. Um, One of them that I did not post about is that I would not compare myself to others as much as I used to. I used to look at what others were doing, the work they did, the journey they were on, the roles they held, if they had certain titles. and I would compare myself. Am I not far enough along? Have I not done enough of XYZ? And that's definitely one piece of advice that I would definitely have given myself is to not compare. You know, everyone's on their own journey. Everyone's accomplishing different things at different times in different ways. And to be proud of where you are and to be able to still celebrate the other people around you for the things they're doing, I think is so key. And so I was often very hard on myself, and I can still be hard on myself. But I think that's something that I would have told my younger self is, you know, don't worry about what other people are doing. Celebrate what they're doing, but be okay with where you are.
I love that. I love that so much. And I know you touched a little bit on imposter syndrome as well. That's
Yeah.
a question that our students and alumni tend to ask, especially for career changers or, like you said, stepping into a new industry or a new role. Were there any other tips on imposter syndrome that maybe you could share?
Mm, that is such a tough one because I have experienced that so much in my career. And I definitely felt it even before I got my job with BrightHire because I had just never been in a traditional marketing role before. I actually watched a webinar, and there was a woman who was moving into, or she had moved into customer marketing. And I think she might have been with Netflix. And she shared her story of how she started out and she didn't know everything about the role, but she was surrounded by such great people that believed in her and that taught her everything that she needed to know. Granted, she was also very curious and tapped into different resources and went to different events and learned as much as she could. But she talked about being surrounded by the right people who were willing to help guide her and give her advice and give her feedback along the way. And she's now been doing it for years and years at this company. And when I heard that, that actually helped me. It put me at ease as I was going through my interviews because I just thought, well, they could easily hire someone else that has a wealth of experience, or they could hire me and I have some of the experience, but not all of it. And I just started asking questions in the interview, like if I was really stuck on something, or maybe there was something that I really needed to grasp that I hadn't grasped yet, how would you help me? How would you help support me? And that answer is what led me to realizing, you know what? I'm going to be surrounded by really great people that are willing to like take me under their wing and show me the things that I don't know. But if that answer were not that, maybe that wouldn't have been the right fit for me. But I definitely think surrounding yourself by great people and constantly being curious, constantly learning. And I've done a lot of that in my career too, where it's like, hey, Kim, we want you to build XYZ thing. And I think, I have no idea what that even means. Now we have AI. So now I can go to AI and say, what is this? What does it mean? How should I be thinking about it? And then I go to webinars, I go to events, I talk to people. How have you done this before? And you can figure it out. So just believing in yourself and then tapping into the resources and the people around you.
Yeah, I love that. I love the staying curious, being a constant learner, and then also you want to be in a space where you feel like you can grow, where you feel like you have people to support you. That's so important. Next one here. How do you convince an interviewer that you're actually a good fit, even if the industry is new for you?
Mm. Yeah, I would say similar to what I shared here. I would showcase what you would do. Again, it's for me, and I've done so many interviews throughout my career. The people that I always ended up bringing onto the team that I loved hiring were not always the people that had the industry experience or that had done the role before, but it was the people that when I would ask them, hey, if I hired you and your job was to do XYZ thing within 30 days, how would you do it? And even if that person had never done it before, if they were able to say, you know, I haven't done that before, but if I were to try, I might do XYZ things. I always think it's about showcasing your curiosity and your willingness to just try something, to put an idea out there. And I know that that's hard because it's easy to think, oh, what if that's a bad idea, right? But hey, a bad idea, putting something out there is better than just saying, I don't know.
Mhm.
So my advice is to just share what you would do, share the ideas that you have because you never know. That's probably going to resonate a lot more than just, I don't know.
Mhm. Right. I love that. And I just love this comment here from Jacob. An interview isn't just them interviewing you. You're also interviewing them to figure out if that's a company you'd like. That's really good.
100%.
Yep, advice there too. So we'll just give it another minute here for questions before we wrap up. But lots of great comments and thoughtful engagement in here. Um, let's see. Lots of great advice. I know LinkedIn profiles were being shared, so great connections happening. I don't see any other comments or questions so far. And like I mentioned, if you do have one later on, you can always email us and I'll make sure to get that through to Kim here. One more from Ashley. Can you post the best questions to ask in the interview again? Kim, you said you wouldn't mind sharing these slide decks. I'd be happy to send that out to us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Here from Jesse. What are some green flags to look for in a remote job?
Green flags, so the things that are good about remote jobs. I'm trying to think about, well, thinking about the companies that I've worked for and companies that I've applied to. Huh. One, I would say that they're very transparent. They're very transparent about what their culture is like on their job postings, on their careers page. They will share compensation details. They will let you know what tools they use to communicate. And I also think a green flag would be during your interviews, your interviewers being, I think, proactive in sharing, like, these are the things that make us who we are. This is how we communicate. This is what we would expect from you. Here's some things that you can do to get up to speed early. So I think it's all about that transparency and being able to showcase what it's actually like at the company. And that doesn't always mean that it's perfect. I did a lot of this work at Zapier too. You don't want to just paint this perfect picture because no company is perfect, but showcasing what it's actually really like transparently in places where candidates often go to learn about the company, but also in the conversations that you're having throughout your interviews.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Kim. Um, let's see. I got some thanks in the chat as well. Thank you so much for being here. But we'll go ahead and conclude, and then we'll make sure to follow up here with an email. It'll have the recording, it'll have the presentation and some of the key sites and resources that we shared. But thank you all so much for being here and for the great engagement throughout. Kim, thank you so much again for sharing your time and insights with our community. I know navigating the job market right now, it's so tough, especially when it comes to remote roles. It could feel very overwhelming at times. So we really appreciate the great things that you share just to help our students and alumni navigate this. Like I mentioned, we'll be sending that recording out shortly along with that quick survey. I did drop that in the chat as well. It's just 2 questions, and your feedback really does help us continue to bring great conversations like this to the community. So we'd love to hear your thoughts. And of course, Kim, we like to extend a big thank you for your continued support of our community. We're so grateful to have leaders like you who are willing to share your experience, helpful advice, and guidance to our students and alumni. To everyone who joined today, thank you for spending a part of your day with us, and we hope to see you at an upcoming session. We do have one tomorrow on federal resumes at 1 p.m., so make sure you check that out on Handshake. But other than that, we'll look forward to seeing you at the next one and wish everyone a great rest of your day. Thanks, Kim.
Thanks for having me. Bye, everyone.